Hey everybody, Andy here. Welcome to my show where I help you build a career you love. Today we're going to be talking about how to become indispensable at work. Something hugely vital in our current situation. You're actually in the middle of a three-part little run that I'm doing on my live shows on Thursday. Last week we talked about great questions to be asking employers right now. I want to make sure that you are joining a viable organization. You got to choose right. But once you're in it, and for those job stayers that have been there, and those of you that are getting new jobs with these high salaries because of wage inflation, I want to make sure that you're actually making sure that nothing can possibly happen to you. Nothing could possibly happen to you with the market turning as it is right now. We're at the tip of the turn, not the bottom of the turn right now. So I want to make sure that you are so valuable an employer would never even consider letting you go or cutting your pay. And then next week we're coming back with how to get a pay raise. That's especially for job stayers whose compensation is probably out of whack with new people coming into employers and employers generally overpaying lately, or paying more, I should say. None of us like to think we're overpaid, but you get the idea. Employers have been having to pay a lot more money to get people into the organization. Lots of times they're not even as experienced as you are. They're certainly not as experienced as you are with your organization. So we want to kind of right size you. So that's the little trio that I have for you. You can watch them all independently, but to me, they're addressing topics and areas you should be focusing on right now. So today specifically, we're going to talk about how to become indispensable at work. So how do you become that most valuable employee? I've got some great instruction for you. I've got a little story peek into my life, maybe half my life ago. It's kind of a microcosm of some of the things I think you should be doing right now. And then I'm going to head into the here's how and exactly what I want you to focus on. There's 4 major areas that I want to bring your attention to that I think you need to be paying extra attention to, as well as I got some mega gifts, free gifts today. Well, that's what a gift is, I suppose. So free takeaways for showing up. And then if you're here with me live, we'll go into the Q&A. So I always like to say hey to you, EGR NHL. Great to see you. Hope you enjoyed the Stanley Cup. Resume Master, Mr. Recruiter, Michael Tierney, my boot camper, Adam Stark, Buffer Monster, Dave Coburn, Baby Girl, GM, Taya with all the extra pay she's getting because she quadrupled her pay, Amy Willoughby, Megan, and everybody else. And if you are in any of my programs, always use your hashtag if you're a boot camper or a leader or in any of my other programs so I know what you have access to. Should I be helping you specifically on your questions? And make sure to put some question marks in front of your questions. Okay, today. Well, it's always good to be indispensable at work. Now, none of us are really irreplaceable, but how do we make it so that it's really hard for an employer to even consider wanting to let us go or downgrading our pay or doing anything that would make us unhappy? And it's always good to do this, except right now, and we're doing this show at the tail end of June. So June 30th is when we're doing this live, 2022. And the stock market is really starting to take a huge dip. Employment market is going to immediately follow. And as a matter of fact, some of the major companies right now have been going through layoffs and hiring freezes, and you've probably been hearing about this in the news. Well, more of this is to come. A lot more of this is to come, I would expect. So it's incredibly important that you're focusing on key areas right now. Now, before I get into the key areas, I mentioned I'm going to give you a little story. You know, I thought before I turned the camera on today, I got a 4-minute version of this, and I got probably about an 8-minute version of this story. I think I'm going to give you the full Monty because I think it's going to give you a bit better perspective. It's a little more of the human side and a peek into my life and what some of the things I've gone through as I've grown as a professional. And I do think it serves as a microcosm of some areas I want you to focus on. So for those of you who do not know me, right now, you're part of the Mile Walk Academy community, and it is my online training and coaching site as a career and leadership coach. And immediately prior to this, I was an executive recruiter for a long time, 17, 18 years. And we do that still on a select basis. But prior to that, for 17 or 18 years, I was actually an information technology and management consultant, a practitioner, not in HR or recruitment, but an actual doer, developer, coder, designer, project manager. Then I ran projects, I sold projects, then I learned how to run practices and so on. And when I was about 27 years old, I'd been working about 5 years. It was 1993 or so, and I was working with Accenture, which was formerly Andersen Consulting, a large, prominent consulting organization, IT integrator of sorts, management consultants. And I was in the oil and gas industry primarily for the 10 years I was with that company. That's what I focused on, and Amoco was my client, and Amoco ultimately became British Petroleum. I think they might have rebranded since, but basically I was working for a large oil company to help them implement a global purchasing system. And I was managing a team of probably 15 consultants from Andersen Consulting and another, say, a dozen or 15 client resources from Amoco who had people who were allocated to the project. And we were going through a requirements gathering phase where we were trying to assess what the system needed to do before we were going to start to literally get into the technical designs and the development. And so we had this big meeting on a Monday at 1 o'clock. It was a Friday toward the tail end of the day, and everybody who was on the team who was working on these requirements was instructed to print out their paper. Now you got to remember, this is 1993. This is a long time ago. So we didn't have all the digital capabilities that we do now. Things weren't as easily accessible. A lot of things were done with printouts and hard copies and things of that nature. I think we were using WordPerfect or something like that. So everybody who was on the team would put a fairly substantial requirements document together, and what they would do is they would print it out and give it to me, and I was organizing it so that somebody could actually print these out in the respective copies for the people that were going to be at the meeting on Monday. And as I was leafing through them, now I give you an idea. I'm like 5'6", dead on, and I must have had 2 stacks of paper that were 6 feet tall. I mean, 2 huge stacks from all these business analysts and technical analysts that were putting this stuff together. And I started to leaf through it just to make sure everything was in order, and I noticed that some things were not. And then the more I dug, the more I found was not really in order. And I sat in a cubicle with walls that I could stand up and lean over, and my boss, Mike, my immediate boss, he was sitting next to me, and I said, Mike, hey, I've got these requirements documents. I'm looking through them for the meeting on Monday with Dean, who was our client manager, and Dean's bosses and the big bosses and the stakeholders. And there's some stuff that's out of order. You got any guidance as to what I should do? Because should I call everybody back and have them work? He said, no, listen, you personally have to go through every document and make sure it's in order, right? Because if they didn't get it right the first time, you just want to make sure that you know what you're doing. Everything's in order. I'm thinking to myself, this was like Friday at like 5 o'clock, and I'm thinking, Mike, I got a problem. He said, what's that? I said, well, I got a date, and I mean, I had a date. I'm waiting months to go out with this woman, and it's our first date. And he looks at me and he says, he raises his eyebrows. Who's it with? I says, it's with Julie. I point down the hall because while she wasn't there, that's where she sat. And as I said this, I realized he knew I was breaking, I must have been breaking 3 different rules, total infractions of some 7-inch personal reference binder that they gave us, how personal policy and conducting and how to behave as a consultant thing had to be this thick, and I broke the rules all the time. So I wasn't supposed to be dating a client. So he said to me, and he knew who Julie was, he's like, oh, I'm so sorry, but Ange, you got to go to town. And he gets all serious. That's what he used to call me. He's like, you're going to have to break your date because you're gonna be here all night going through this stuff, maybe all weekend. And I knew that was the case. He says, call me at 10 o'clock. I'll be home. Celeste, his then fiance, she'll be sleeping by then. I'll be able to talk, and we can kind of run through this. So now I'm thinking, I gotta call Julie, and I wanted to date her so badly with this raven hair and green eyes, but the thing that I really loved was this little Demi Moore raspy voice that she had that I did not want to hear from the phone call I was about to make. So I called her up, and she picked up the phone, and she immediately knew something was wrong. She's like, Andy. You know, and I can't take it when I hear those kind of things coming at me. And I said, Julie, I'm so sorry. I'm stuck at work. Mike's making me work. I gotta do this stuff. She's like, that's it. Mike's on my shit list. But I really wish I spent all this time getting ready. I really wish you could see me. I've got this new black dress, and I'm to myself, no, thank God I could not see her. And as I was reflecting on this story, because I did take a rain check and I got to see the black dress the next weekend, and I realized at that moment that I just added another reason to why I know God absolutely loves me, because he waited another 14 years to create the iPhone so that she could not possibly take a selfie of herself and send it to me, because I never would have been able to stay at work. So I said, okay, how about a rain check? And I'll tell you what, we still have the dinner reservation. Why don't you grab one of your girlfriends? Go, I'll pay the bill. It's on me. Take a rain check. So she said, okay. So then I worked all night. I get up, about 5 o'clock in the morning, I take an hour-long nap on the big boss's couch, because he had a big office with a big comfy couch. I slept an hour or two. I got up. I started working. It's lunchtime. I think, I gotta go get some toiletries, and I might be here another 2 nights. I gotta get some underwear and some t-shirts. So I go to Walgreens, I get the toothbrush, I get the toothpaste, I go to what then was Marshall Field's, which is now Macy's, if that's still standing. I'm like, score! 3-pack of Polo boxers, great. I get some t-shirts, and as I'm checking out, I'm thinking to myself, what am I gonna call this on the invoice I'm gonna give my client, Dean? And we'll just call it office supplies kind of thing. So I get back to work. I work all night Saturday, 3 o'clock in the morning. I drive home. I change my suit. I take a shower. I change my suit. I head back to the Amico building. I talk to my lieutenants. I said, look, I've notated everywhere in these 12 foot of documents. You have to go through this and try to figure out what I've done, because I have to go and work with my other big boss on something we're trying to sell. And we've got other clients coming to our Anderson home office. And so I need to be there and work with Ed, Mike's boss. And so if you need me, you're gonna have to call Ed's office or try to call my cell phone. Cell phones were not as handy as they are now. So 1 o'clock rolls around, and I know my troops were trying to call me, but I couldn't call them back. So I'm sitting in my big boss's office, and 1:05 rolls around, 1:10 rolls around, and I'm looking at my watch, and he's looking at me like, why do you keep looking at your watch? You got somewhere to go? What's wrong? I said, no, everything's fine. But let me paint the story for you. Right now, 1 o'clock, we've got this requirements meeting. There's 20 people in the Amico building on the 37th floor, Dean, his boss, their bosses, the stakeholders, and 2 of our lieutenants that are going to try to walk through everything. And there's no way they're going to be able to do this without me. He said, oh, come on, it'll be fine. I said, in 2 minutes, that phone's going to ring. It's going to be Dean, and he's going to want me to go there. So he looks at me, and the words are still hanging out of my mouth, and bang, the phone rings, just like something you'd see on TV. And I see him pick up the phone. He looks at me and he says, hey, Dean. Yeah, he's right here. Sure, I'll send him over. Now, it was just a quick cab right away. So I get over to the Amico building, and there they are, 20 some odd of them, congregating in the hall, commiserating as if they couldn't do anything without me. So we get into the meeting, and Dean, my client, says to me, Andy, we see you made a ton of changes here over the weekend. We didn't really have a chance to talk to you about these. I'm wondering if we can ask you some questions so you can clarify what this stuff is. Sure, no problem. He says, what's this alteration right here? So, well, you see, in Azerbaijan, if you order supplies, anything from these vendors that move them through these supply and logistics companies, you're not going to be able to capture the data and aggregate it appropriately, because actually that company is this company over here by a different name through a different parent company, and basically we don't have the connection or the relationship, and your payables will be off as far as how much you've actually paid the parent company, as well as the contract amounts. You can negotiate better deals and so on. So we have to build you a custom integration to be able to verify these things, and that's a problem. So how about this one? Kazakhstan problem, same thing. This one here, Uzbekistan. So basically anything that surrounds the Caspian Basin, you're going to have these problems. And it's a good thing I caught it, because before Saturday, I didn't even know what the Caspian Basin was, that there was one, where it was geographically, or what surrounded it. So obviously this gets a chuckle. They go through another, say, half a dozen or 8 of these, and he looks at me and he says, did you go all the way around the world and look at every one of our facilities, plants, refineries? Yeah, that's the point. It's a global purchasing system. So if all this stuff's not in order, it isn't going to work. So I said, so not only did I go all the way around the world and learn a ton about geography and learn about a whole bunch of places I never knew existed, but I went all the way around the world and I ended up down the block in the Whiting refinery in Indiana, where I've actually been. So they look at me, they start laughing, and because this is true, but it's a very complicated system. There's a lot of intricacies. You got different people working on different parts. And now, meeting breaks up. Everybody seems to be pretty happy. My boss, my big boss, comes over to talk to Dean. He comes over to my cube. He said, I just talked to Dean. I said, great. How did he think it went? He says he was really happy with the meeting. And I said, did he say anything else? He said, yeah. He said, I know you move a lot of, Dean said to Ed, I know you move a lot of consultants in and out as our projects go up and down through the different phases. But if you ever take Andy off any of my projects, I'm going to pull all the contracts from you. And so Ed then said to me, so that other stuff that you're working on with me, don't you worry about that. We're going to keep you here. And effectively, the moral of the story is, while nobody is irreplaceable, if you can do what you need to do to be able to learn everything that you possibly can about what it is that you do, and there's a number of other elements and tones that go along with that story and things that had to happen to build up to a culmination like that, that you need to make it super, super hard and painful if they would ever let you go. So now all you youngsters out there that want to go work for some of those big integrators, well, that's what you got to look forward to, is a bunch of all-nighters and 80-hour work weeks. But this is the kind of stuff that you might need to be thinking about right now. While you might be able to do it in the comfort of your own home, I would start getting prepared to be spending more time, whether you're doing it for your employer or you're building skills for yourself. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. I want to give you the formula, but I thought that was a kind of a cute story to share with you, a little peek into my life. You get a little understanding of what a 27-year-old Andy might do in situations like that. But when duty calls, duty calls. So let's talk about the 4 areas that I want to run through. I don't know how long that story actually taught. When I rewind the clock, I'm going to see how fast I sent that story. If you enjoyed that story, give me a little thumbs up. Send YouTube a little bit of goodness here. That Andy was as nutty then as he is now. Actually, I'm probably even crazier now. All right. Number 1 area I want you to focus on to become indispensable. Expertise. Now, there's different kinds of expertise I want you to think about. Okay? There's the depth of what you know, and there's the breadth of what you know. So what are these things? Well, the depth is my ability to understand purchasing, my ability to understand the Culinet, now Computer Associates, or whatever the system was that we were implementing that had a Bachman diagram that made me want to fall over the first time I saw it. But you develop this through on-the-job training, reading, taking classes, but focusing on going deep on what it is that you know, your bread and butter. I'm talking about a hard skill. And one of the other things that I would be doing is I would be writing articles related to your specific domain. Write the articles, share them with your boss, share them with your team, share them with your clients. Right? Back in 93, LinkedIn hadn't been born yet. LinkedIn wasn't going to be born for another 10, 11 years, right? Those kind of things. And all the mediums, Medium itself, Medium is, right? Medium.com. You could go there. You can write wherever you want, but I would become as knowledgeable as possible so that not only are you an excellent at what you do and you're great at your trade, but also you're sharing your knowledge with your team and you're teaching them, right, through your articles. And then the other thing I would do is look at the breadth of what you're working on. So learn the other people's functions. I, as a project manager on that job, I could literally do just about anybody's job, whether it was functional, technical, on the conversion team, the QA team, made no difference. But do what you can to learn other people's functions. But at a minimum, make sure you're thinking about the big picture. Ask the questions about, why are we doing that? What has to happen? right? What has to happen at the top level? Why am I doing what I'm doing in the first place? Where does it fit? Like, am I the hub? Am I the spoke? Am I somewhere in the daisy chain? And where I am in the daisy chain, what happens before me? What happens after me, kind of thing? And what is ultimately the goal of the chain? And then factor in the big business issues, right? So when you understand, even if you're a technologist or you're working on something specific, a process, a technology, or whatever, what is it that we're trying to accomplish? I want to pause here for a second. We did a session with members of my job search coaching program. You hear me call them boot campers because it used to be called the job search boot camp. We did this about a week or so ago. Actually, I think it was last week. And we did some hot seats where I was talking with them about their resume bullets. And it was interesting to note as we were going through these case studies and interactions through the camera with the people that they knew what they were doing and they were good at what they were doing, right? They were excellent at their trade. But their ability to communicate, reflect, communicate, and package what it was they were doing, why it was they were doing it, and translate it into a language that I could immediately understand, simulating this as an interviewer, was difficult for a lot of them without me prompting them with questions. So you need to be asking yourself the right questions. What's happening? Why is it happening? For whom is it happening? How do we make that happen? What's the greatest ROI? And so on. So think about that. So expertise. Then overall skills. Okay, so aside from your domain expertise, what are the skill sets that are going to help you accelerate the most and make you a great long-term employee? So what am I talking about? You often hear me talk about capabilities. You know, the marketer who has to know how the marketing mechanics, except she needs to know, well, what are the pain points of my customer? Well, she needs to know how to identify the customer and the human behavior and what might resonate, and from an organizational standpoint and an analytics standpoint and data capture, all these other things that make a great marketer that isn't specific to her ability to market this microphone or this computer screen or this technology or this service or whatever. So we're talking about what are the general principles. The salesperson who knows how to sell this widget but also understands human behavior, psychology, organization, follow through, right? How to make an argument, how to listen effectively, great communication skills. So where can you learn how to do that? Now, I have created a free video that I just released on Tuesday. So June 28th, I guess it came out. I'm not sure if you saw that. It's called The Free Guide to Building Essential Skills. And in there, I had a free download, my skill building my skill building roadmap and leadership assessment. Maybe the team, actually, can you pin that in the chat for us to let everybody take it? I'm actually gonna I hope they pin this while I show you this. So this is free for you to take, but there is a methodology that I built. It's my argument that everybody goes through, regardless of what your function is, that you go through these different tiers. You're a producer, you're a communicator, you're an influencer, a developer, and visionary. Let's not get hung up with what I specifically gave it as a one-word label. You know, you operate independently, or you interact with others, or you inspire others, or you lead teams, and you create and you predict. We all do these in some form and fashion. And if you grab this free booklet, you'll not only learn what these things are, but some of the specific, you can kind of see them here, some of the specific skill sets that I have highlighted at each of the different stages. And then you can work through this, but there's an action plan here. So this is not just educational. There's also a leadership assessment that you can go through and assess how effective you are at producing, operating independently, and so on. So I've created this rather simple way for you to create a score and assess where you are on an overall score of 75. And then I do this for each level. And then what you can do is you can also track You can also, or I should say, put an action plan together. Now, if you are a premium member, if you're in my leadership coaching program, I have steps for you with access to different lessons that I've already created for you. But there's a 9-step formula to put your plan together. And if you are not a member of my leadership coaching program, so this is just as effective for somebody who is not a paid member of the leadership program, I have your steps in here too, to exactly what I'd like you to do to outline the skill sets that you need to be building. And then the other thing is I have a tracking sheet for you to prioritize, benchmark, and track how you're doing at each of the different stages. So this booklet is free. And then if you are in my leadership coaching program, all of these hyperlinks are in the leadership library. They're video lessons with assets, audios, or books or training programs with workbooks that have a written recap of the sessions, thought provokers that help you think through the lesson, and challenges to help you groove the lesson. And those are quick access for anybody who's actually in that program. But I would encourage you to actually take the free booklet, 35 pages of goodness that you can have on me to better understand how to build skills, which skills to build, and at which stage to build them based on the ROI they're going to give you for what you need and what you do. And the other thing that I would do is I have a 9-day Master Your Craft Challenge. This is free. And I give you on the first day a booklet with 9 different activities that you should go through to become a master at your trade. And then each day I send you a 1 to 5 minute video, and then there's a little write-up in the booklet, and then there's a link to the video, and then there's some areas for you to take notes to think about it for yourself. This is free. Maybe the team can just drop this one in the chat as well. But this is a really good way for you to work on those things as well. But this one here is also very overarching. Really, really, really nice. All right, the next thing that I want you to do is I want you to focus on relationship building, but it's a little bit of a different kind of relationship building. When I'm talking about relationship here, there's 2 things I want you to focus on: teaching and building an internal network. I always want you to be building the external network, but I'm talking about people inside your company right now. So the teaching, let's talk about that first. I want you to know this. Every week I show up here for you, right? Best ability is availability, so to speak. Every week I show up. And every week, what do? I listen to you. You ask me questions. I give you answers, right? I also teach, right, like we're doing right now. And every week, there's an opportunity for me to teach you, serve you. There's an opportunity to help you. Awesome, right? There's also an opportunity for me to evaluate me, articulate it different ways to different people. And over time, that I'm actually continually answering similar, if not the same exact questions, I'm becoming a better teacher because I'm also observing what's working, what's resonating, how I can say it, newer ways I can tell you things that hit trigger points, and so on. I become more effective too. This is like the win, 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 win. I mean, it's the gift that keeps on giving, which is teaching. So what I want you to do is look for opportunities. So I talked about writing some articles, but I want you to look for opportunities where you can help them, your teammates, your clients, customers, or whatever, people in other units, right? It'll make you better. And what it's also doing is it's demonstrating your knowledge. Do not think for 1 second that knowledge is power. Okay, it isn't. Knowledge is not power. Whoever said that, well, I respectfully disagree. The application of knowledge is power. And the other thing related to this is, don't you worry if somebody else knows what you know. Go learn something, go learn more, right? Kind of thing. And I would not be worried about others in your environment as competition. You're on the same team. You should be sharing. Here's another thing. I've never said this to you all because I really want to drive the teaching point home. You all out there, I'm venturing to guess, know more about my competition than I do. Probably because you either watch them as well, or you watched them and then kept looking for a teacher who was effective, and then you stumbled on me, and then you said, hey, I like this Andy guy. Or, right, or you just are looking for different things and you're just trying different people. You know more about them than I do because I don't pay any attention to them. I have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. Why? Because I show up here every week and you tell me what you need. There is no better indication of the best way to serve you is to answer what you need. I listen to you. You need to be listening to your boss, to your customers, to the market, figuring it out, and then educating everybody else. That's what you should do. And trust me when I tell you, if you become the best teacher on the team, you're going to be the most desirable asset. How many of my competitors do you think copy my stuff and then try to regurgitate it when they have absolutely no understanding of what the psychology of why something is the way it is? But the other thing that they can't do is they can't draw on my experiences to be able to support you. It's the same thing for you. And teaching will make you grow faster. It is one of the fastest ways to grow. And people don't understand that. Look for opportunities to teach. Challenge yourself to do this. That's one area. The second one is in your network. And here's what I want you to do. How do you make everybody's around you, their life better? So when I say network, if you're wondering, like, Andy, what's the icebreaker? How do I help you? What do you do? Right? What do you do? How does what you do fit with me? Is there anything I can do to make your life better? Oh, I hand this to you and then you take it and do what with it? Hey, tell me what you need. Is there anything I could do on my end? Is there anything you would love to have that you're missing from my predecessor, from my teammate, from my whatever, that would make your life easier? The people that are handing you something, because everybody's handing you something, it might be verbal, right? It might be a document. It might be a computer. Through a computer. It might be whatever. Can you have a conversation with them? Hey, you know what? Let me make your life easier. You know what? I'll take care of that. Don't you worry about filling that in. Or hey, you know what? If you actually change this to that, then I won't have to ever kick that back to you. Whatever. Right? You're trying to figure out. And when I was on a Saturday, right, working through requirements documents, I had to call a few clients that I didn't call very often, let alone on a Saturday. Right? They all called me back. Why? Because I had built relationships with them to the extent that they would trust me. And if I ever needed something and needed their knowledge, they'd respond, right? Because they don't have to be super diligent and responsive. So I want you to think about that. And I've got some instruction for y'all. If you're in the free zone, sorry, these are a little small. The free. I have a little video out there, the best advice for starting a new job. Okay, now I know you might say, well, Andy, I'm in the job already. Yeah, or I've been in the job 3 years. Makes no difference. Go watch this video because the tip is something you should be doing all the time. If you are in my premium job searching program, the job search coaching program, there is a wonderful 60-minute session on your first 90 days. It's a bonus that I give you. It's a recently added bonus, and it gives you 12 steps of what I would do. And a part of what's in those steps or those protocols are how to build relationships with the people on your team. And then if you are in my leadership coaching program and you have everybody in my leadership program, whether you're a monthly member, an annual member, or a lifetime member, has access to my $400 Career Accelerator program as a free gift. And in there, there's a number of different modules. There's more on first 90 days. There's some other things that will help you. That's what I would check out for that. So if you want a little bit more there. And then number four is ideas. You have to generate more of them. They need to be better. And I have given you the formula to do this. I have shared with you my excellence planning, where asking yourself questions is what ultimately will help you generate ideas. Anybody who just thinks about a problem, I'm stuck, they come up with ideas slower, if at all, or if ever. The person who asks questions and steps outside of, right, forest and trees, you get the analogy, but steps back and says, why are we doing this? What needs to happen? And so on, is going to come up with the solutions faster. But from an excellence planning perspective, the exercise that I do daily to generate ideas for my business and my team and my systems is I ask myself 5 questions. And without going into all of what they are, I have a video out there on 5 questions to skyrocket your career. And I take you through, that's free, it's on my YouTube channel, and I take you through how to evaluate your existing customer base. You all have one. Your existing community base. You all have one. I make the analogies for you in the video, as well as how you market and sell or brand or personal brand or whatever. You all have one, as well as the internal systems or processes that you use. You all do these, as well as what should you stop doing. And so when you start looking at these things through this lens, you generate a lot of ideas. Some are small, some are medium, some are gigantic. But I would do that, as well as if you are in the leadership program, there is the excellence planning in detail in the Career Accelerator program. And if you have access to the productivity challenge, which the annual members of my leadership coaching program have access to, I go into detail on the excellence planning as well, so you can figure that out. But how you idea storm is something really critical. All right, now I want to recap it. So, areas of expertise, that's the depth and the breadth. Overall skill sets, grab the skill building roadmap and leadership assessment booklet I showed you, that I demoed for you. As well as the video, your free guide to building essential skills that I just released the other day, or whenever you're watching this. I released it on June 28th, 2022. And then relationship building. So check out some of those assets, internal relationships, as well as idea gen. So I have a video or 2 out there on YouTube, as well as much more in-depth instruction inside some of those programs. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that. That'll help you become a bit more indispensable, so where your employers just won't be able to live without you. Make sure you grab the free gift. If you got a lot of value out of this video or this session, please click the thumbs up. Send the signal to YouTube that you enjoyed it. Share it. That's great too. Put some comments in the comments underneath the video if this is the recording, or let me know how you're coming along in the chat that I'm going to go to in a minute. If you're watching this on the recording, I'll see you next week.